Hi everybody, my name is Katie Brenner and I am doing my critique on Adam Keyes' paper, Time for Change, an Analysis of Temporal Order in Philip Brooks' Pipe Bomb Speech. This is Adam's close reading of CM Punk's text, and he's looking at temporality, and I just wanted to give my own critique of his paper. I wanted to start out by saying I thought he set it up really well, especially giving us that idea of how CM Punk uses temporality in a way that he sets things up past, present, future, and he uses that to his rhetorical advantage to kind of set up his entire argument. So he kind of makes the argument that in forming his paper to move in a certain way, in that the past, present, future direction of temporality itself, it works as a rhetorical advice to the audience that he's speaking to. So I just thought he did a really good job kind of setting up that argument and also talking to us a little bit more in depth about the characters that CM Punk specifically addresses in his text. He talks to us about the significance of his addressing Hulk Hogan and The Rock and Cena and their similarities themselves and how they lend to his rhetorical device as far as what he's trying to say to the audience that he's speaking to at the time. Same thing with the other two individuals that he addresses within the WWE. So I thought he did a really good job kind of setting that up for a reader, especially a reader that may not necessarily know what he's speaking about and may not be as familiar with the world of the WWE. So I thought that was set up really well. I feel like as far as temporality, that was an interesting choice. And as I was reading the paper and I watched CM Punk's text a few times just to kind of see what I was feeling, I read the left article as well on Lincoln, and I thought that was very interesting. My own take on the temporality when it came to CM Punk's speech, what I thought was really interesting is CM Punk does several shifts in temporal orientation while he's speaking. I think that overall, you're right that he does kind of follow a past, present, future. But I thought one thing that made me go, was how he does shifts that seem kind of really sporadic at times. I kind of mapped it out as I was watching his text and reading through the particular text itself. And what I found was he starts out with looking into the future right off the bat. He talks about before I leave in 3 weeks. Even though technically he's addressing Cena, he's in the present, he makes that automatic shift to the future right away. And then, as you say in your paper, he does shift then to the present, talking about, I don't hate you, but I hate this idea that everybody thinks you're the best in the present state at that point. And then he goes to the past, talking about Hulk Hogan and Dwayne. So I sort of split it up in a little bit of a different way, starting it out future, present, past. Okay. And then he makes this really interesting statement of, I am the best wrestler in the world, taking us back to the present. And then talking again about the past when it comes to Paul Heyman and the other individual that he talked about when it came to executives within the WWE. And then once again, bringing us back to the future. He does this. That was one thing that Jim had talked about in his lectures, and then a lot of the readings had addressed specifically is this idea of repetition, and what repetition means when it comes to close reading. So this idea of going back to the future, funny, back to the future tense of I am going to leave with the WWE Championship. He makes that assertion quite a few times throughout his text. And then one really interesting part of this text that I saw when it came to temporality is there's one sentence right in the middle where it's actually he forms his sentence kind of iconically, and his sentence forms a meaning that is in itself temporal. He talks about day in and day out for 6 years. I've proven that I'm the best, and he goes into the things that he's done. So he kind of takes the audience through this whole claim, and it is in itself, they are able to visualize this time that he's spent trying to prove himself for what he is. And then, like I said, the interesting factor for me is his shift. For me, it didn't seem to necessarily have a direct order. So he goes back to the present when he addresses the audience. He talks about, I'm not on the cups, I'm not on the promotions, I'm not on the TV shows, etc., addressing what's going on right now. And then again, he goes back into the future, and when he's talking about how it makes him sick that The Rock is going to be in WrestleMania when he is not. Back again to the I feel like I'm getting a little bit repetitive, but I mean, close reading. Let's just be honest. That is, what we were looking for anyway. He goes back to the present when he's addressing the audience, and I think this is something that you talk about in your paper. This is a really significant part of his text, because he addresses the audience specifically, and he says, right now, you guys are supporting this problem. You're the ones buying these cups. You're the ones that are, doing this, that, and the other thing that are making this the problem that it is. So he is in the present. He is addressing them, those specific people right there. And then I feel like he ends the text, you're right, looking into the future. He talks about his leaving. He talks about the future of the WWE itself, and he would like to think that it would get better once Vince McMahon is gone, but the fact that his daughter is taking over, he doesn't see that happening, and he does. He leaves us sort of in a future direction of things. So I agreed with you there, but I thought it was interesting how, even though he uses a lot of different temporal references when he's talking about different things in his text, it seems very sporadic. And I wondered, while I was reading your paper and then while I was looking at this text, what the significance of that is. If he wasn't trying to draw the audience, if he wasn't trying to cause a dissonance, what specifically his rhetorical strategy was there. So I thought that was one thing that you might want to think about when it comes to temporality and CM Punk's text if you decide to do this for your final paper. And then Jim also mentioned thinking about another possibility that you might want to look into. And one thing that I had looked at, I thought of the reading Leach and Short on style and choice. Considering the obvious, really interesting aspects of space, of what the WWE is in itself, like a mythic performance-based. They portray this reality when in fact it's a performance, and things like that. I thought the concepts of style and that might be a really interesting thing to look at when it comes to CM Punk's text. So I just had a few little notes that I had taken when I was reading. And Leach and Short defines style as a way in which language is used in a given context by a given person for a given purpose. And they talk about the selection from a linguistic repertoire. And one thing that made me think about is the fact that CM Punk specifically looks into the camera and says, whoops, I'm breaking the fourth wall. When that is actually, a selection from the linguistic repertoire of, performance theory, theater. And so in that, he's looking at the camera and making the claim that, this is performance, this is theater, this is, he's kind of, making the audience think about the fact that, yes, this is something that's being performed for you, which I thought was quite interesting. They also talk about in the Leach and Short article about the connection between style and personality. And I thought that this just fit completely when it comes to CM Punk with this text. Punk, from what I have looked into the few times, the times that I've been able to read your paper and look into who CM Punk was and who he portrays himself to be, I feel like this rant, this challenge to authority, this absolute, almost protest in a way, as I've said in former critiques, it portrays, who CM Punk wants the audience to think he is, what his character is. And I just thought that was definitely an interesting thing to look at when it comes to style. That the fact that he wanted to challenge this authority and the fact that it worked, is one thing that is definitely, something to consider. And the relation they go on to talk about the relationship between language and artistic function, and why does the author choose to express himself in whatever way that he does. Now, when looking at CM Punk's text, in just looking at the language that he uses, there is profanity. He talks about, rather than, talking about someone, being given something that they don't deserve, he uses, well, someone kissed their ass. Someone is better at kissing Vince McMahon's ass than I am. There are specific choices of language that he uses. Idiotic, doofus, when he's referring to Vince McMahon's daughter and her husband. These are, features of the text that definitely have significance, and they affect how he wanted to portray what he was saying. And then lastly, one of the other things that struck me about this article I was reading, they talk about manner versus matter, expression versus content. And for CM Punk's text, or for Brooks itself, he makes the claim, and I actually counted how many times he referred to the phrase, I am the best. And I counted at least 5 times that he used those exact words. He makes this claim a lot, but if you think about it, throughout the course of the text, he never provides the audience with any evidence of this. If they are avid wrestling fans, then they would have seen it, I would hope. I specifically hadn't seen or known what he did. He doesn't provide the evidence. The repetition in itself becomes the content, but the fact that he's saying it, and as many times as he specifically refers to it, that's the expression. That's the more important part. And they talk about the sense plus stylistic value equals the total significance, or the basic meaning of what is said plus how the speaker expresses it equals what is communicated to the audience. So the basic meaning of I am the best, I am the great wrestler, and how he expressed that to the audience ultimately communicated his meanings. It's the same thing with, the fact that he decided to use, kiss their ass and things like that. He wanted to portray a specific meaning to the audience, and he wanted them to get that. Plus, he wanted to express it in a way that matched his personal style in itself. So, that's about all that I had. I really enjoyed reading this paper again. I'm getting really familiar with CM Punk. So, I just hope that this was helpful, and thank you for listening.